Hey everybody, it's Tony with Big T Bariatric, and I'm back at you with another reaction video. Today it is Wednesday, January 4th. I hope you're having a great one so far. Before I begin this reaction video, I just want to give a huge thank you to two new friends of mine who are subscribers. Their names are Alex and Widow, and they spent a lot of time with me yesterday, well over midnight. We were on Discord. We were working out a new way of me making videos so they sound a lot better, they look a lot better, and I think we did a great job, and I'm so grateful that they decided to help me out. I've been trying to figure out a way to do videos better than I've been doing so far, and this is awesome. So please allow me some time to make it even better. I know I need to find a way to give better video quality, maybe audio quality. So we'll see how this turns out today, and we'll keep going from there. We're also working on a few ways of building a community here through this channel. So if you're interested in being part of a community, please subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. Leave a like, leave a comment. The algorithm really loves that stuff, and it'll help send my video out to a much larger audience. So again, I'm very grateful for them and for every single one of you. I just hit 300 subscribers last night. I couldn't be more grateful for all the support through all of this. But anyways, today's video is another clip from my 600-pound life. It's X plus size model talking about why she doesn't model anymore. So this should be interesting, and we'll get started right now.
When I wake up in the morning, my body hurts so much. And the pain in my joints is so bad. I hurt in ways I never dreamed that I would. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? And how am I going to get through this day?
Did you see her legs? Man, I'm very thankful that when I got big that I didn't have any problems with my legs. I didn't have any lymphedema. I didn't have, if you looked at any of the Stephen Asante videos, the way his legs looked or her legs, it looked like, I don't know, a sponge or something that had all kinds of pores just on it. It's really horrible what obesity does, and you just kind of get to a point where your body doesn't know where to store fat anymore. And there was one part under my belly, and I'm not going to show it to you or nothing, but when I was at my biggest, like, there was a solid lump of fat. It wasn't like the other fat. You know, fat can be jiggly, but you can kind of start growing this hard fat deposit somewhere. And I think that might have been a lymphedema starting. And as I was gaining weight, it was getting bigger. And then as I started losing weight, it got smaller, and now it's completely gone. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, when the body doesn't know where to store fat anymore, it'll put it anywhere it can. Let's continue.
I just don't have the energy to deal with it. But because of how painful it is to walk, I have to use my scooter to get anywhere.
I mean, just getting out of bed at that size, I know I talk about it a lot because a lot of these videos show them struggling just to get out of bed. It can be an entire day's worth of work and energy just to get up out of bed. You're rolling around. I call it free willy syndrome. You know, you're like a beached whale. You're trying to get back into the water, and I'm not trying to make fun of them by calling them whales or anything, but it's like you just have no mobility whatsoever, and you have to roll to the side to just kind of get yourself into a position where you're sitting. And then that first step is just absolutely horrible. And then to sit down, it looks like she's sitting on a wheelchair maybe, or some other kind of chair. Yeah, it's not good. It takes a lot out of you. And that's why most of them become just completely bedridden, because this is the very last step before that happens.
Ooh. Okay, it didn't feel good. Even here in my apartment. There are many days I wish I had someone to help me, because it's getting harder and harder to do anything.
Yeah, if you can't even walk into the bathroom and it's right there connected to your room. I was there at that point where my bathroom is connected to my bedroom, and just walking in there was becoming more and more difficult. But I mean, if your bathroom is connected to your bedroom and you can't even walk in there, you need to get in your wheelchair to roll you over there. that is a very bad position to be in.
I was adopted when I was about 2 months old. And I grew up in a family where I was the youngest of three and the only girl. So, in a lot of ways, I think my parents just didn't know what to do with me. And what made it worse was the adoption agency told my parents that my birth mother was a large woman, therefore, I should be closely monitored so that I didn't turn out the same way.
That's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You believe that you were meant to be fat because you were told from a younger age your mom's fat, so you're going to become fat. That's not necessarily true. I'm the only one in my family who became obese. I'm the only brother to three sisters. And so it's just one of those situations where you just gotta kind of shrug off any generational curse that you think might be on your family at that point. You don't give into it and say, okay, well, I'm meant to be fat, so I'm just going to sort of live that lifestyle and become fat. It doesn't make sense to me.
My mother, God bless her, took that very much to heart and was waiting for me to get fat. So for my mom, it was like an obsession. She was constantly worried or concerned about my weight all the time. And she and the pediatrician decided about the time I was 3 to put me on my first diet.
But there's a reason for that. It's not just because you had the genetics to become fat. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to become fat. It's maybe you were eating a certain way, maybe from childhood you began to just eat like crazy. My mom told me stories about when I was a kid and when I was a baby that she could not give me enough milk. Like, she'd give me a bottle and I'd be screaming and crying for more and more milk. And that's just sort of where my food obsession sort of began. It's Yeah, I was a baby and I was 5 years old when I started to really gain a lot of weight, and I was always bigger than everybody else. So maybe genetics does play a part of it, but again, nobody in my family is overweight except for me. So I don't know. Maybe there was some sort of chemical dependency from the womb. I don't know. And that sort of began a lifelong obsession with food that triggered through other trauma in my life as I was a kid, went through mental, physical, and sexual abuse. And so all of that really triggered a continuation of what started in the womb. I'm not sure. There's probably a lot of science that has not figured out why people are more easily susceptible to becoming obese versus those who I always joked that, my sister and I could sit down and eat the same dinner. I would gain a pound, she would run up the stairs, and she would have no problem losing that pound. It's just some people are built different. Genetics does come into play, um, and a lot of it is trauma and stuff like that that sort of realizes later through your eating habits.
And when I was 4, the same pediatrician decided that it would be a good idea to start me on diet pills.
Mm.
And that really started to mess me up because the pills had the same side effect as amphetamines. So I was basically a 4-year-old on speed. And my life was never the same after that.
Well, speed should have sped you up, right? It should have made you more active and running around like crazy. And yeah, it's normally people who are on speed, or for me being ADHD, I know if I were to get on some sort of medication that it would prevent me from eating. But I know it probably messed her up chemically in her brain, just being 4 years old and having to take those pills and being told you're going to be fat. And yeah, she started off wrong, very wrong.
And my weight stayed the central focus in my relationship with my mom as I got older. So my mom was always on me about the diet, was always on me about eating. I can still, in the back of my head, hear her yelling at me to stop eating. And it made me feel like there was something wrong with me.
She doesn't look big in that picture there as a child. Maybe back then, there was different weight standards, so maybe she was starting to get a little chunky for her age, and all the other kids were smaller than her. At the same time, you don't put your child through that just because someone told you, hey, you're big, your daughter's going to be big. you just don't put your child through that. That's trauma that she didn't need to go through. But again, there was probably something else within her that was running towards food, and she was gaining weight, and so it sort of became a self-fulfilling prophecy, like I was saying before.
And that I was a disappointment to my parents. They had wanted this cute little daughter, and instead of some cute little blonde darling daughter, they got me. I think in the end,
Yeah.
all this control over my food actually had the opposite effect.
Yeah, she looks a lot bigger in that picture, so I could start to see where at a younger age her family was really concerned about her weight just blooming up, especially as she probably got closer to puberty as well. It's sad to see.
Because it made me want to eat even more. So I would find ways to sneak food when they weren't looking, because I never knew when my mom was going to take away my food. I just didn't understand why she treated me like this.
See, your parents always know when you start sneaking food. Let me tell you, I used to sneak food and I would always get caught. There was always something missing from the pantry. There was, hey, where did those donuts go? Where did this go? Where did that slice of cheese go? You know, they notice because they pay for all your food, and so they know when it's gone, when it's missing. And so there's no such thing as sneaking food from your parents as a kid. So again, this sort of like led to more feeling towards, hey, you need to take care of yourself. You need to focus on your diet. You need to stop eating. And apparently she couldn't do that.
I even asked her why she even adopted me. Did they adopt me to be mean to me? Is that why I wasn't allowed to eat the same food as everyone else? Is that why I was hungry all the time? You know, did you adopt me to starve me? I actually remember asking my mom that question once. So I just kept turning to food because it's what made me feel good. It was comfort, it was love, and it felt like it was all I had.
On one hand, her adoptive parents were showing her love, trying to take care of her. They sort of felt that, you know, she was going to gain weight and they wanted to prevent that from happening. They wanted her to live a healthy life, but by obsessing over it, it sort of like pushed her away from doing the right thing and led her down this path of gaining weight. So, you know, it's a really difficult thing. And for her, she felt like she didn't feel loved. She didn't feel comfort from her family the way she should have. She felt pushed away by them. And so she did run towards food to help her feel comfortable, help her feel better about herself, which just led her down this path where she ended up where she's at today. So I started gaining. And by the time I was 12, I was already up to 200 pounds. And that only got worse as I got into high school. Because when I was about 14, I found out that my mom had cancer. And it was devastating to see her start to wither away like she did. And the only thing I had to help me through the pain was food. So by the time I graduated high school, I was approaching 300 pounds. Yeah, that's about where I was when I was leaving high school. I remember being in junior high playing football. I crossed the 200-pound mark, and my dad was actually shocked by that, and he was worried about my size. And then once I got into high school, we moved from one area to another, and that summer I was very active, and I wasn't sure how I gained weight. But I went from 200 to almost 300 by high school, and it was just ridiculous. Just the amount of weight that I was gaining every summer despite being active. I remember playing on trampoline, wrestling in the backyard, riding my bike for miles. Like I was always out and about doing things, playing football with the boys. But when I moved to the new place, I didn't have any friends there yet, and I was so out of shape. I had tried to go play football for my high school at the time, and I just couldn't do it. I busted my knee the year before, and it wasn't healing right, and just so I ended up being a lot less mobile, and I ended up gaining a lot of weight, and it's just sad, you know, when you go through puberty and you keep gaining weight, and you don't realize you have a food addiction at the time because you're only a teenager, and yeah, my dad was really worried for me at the time. And then the year after I graduated from high school, my mom passed away. Emotionally, her passing was very difficult. I was very angry. I was very hurt.
because it felt like we never got the chance to fix anything between us. And I think on some level, I was always holding out hope for that. But
Yeah, that's the thing too. When my dad passed away, he and I weren't very close. It wasn't that we had any fights or anything like that. He spent a lot of time addicted to drugs, and he spent a lot of time in jail when I was a kid. So he was in and out of jail at the time. And when I was 13 is when he got out of jail the last time. And he was doing really well, got his life together. We moved from Texas to Michigan because he was born here in Michigan and grew up here. And so I moved in with him. And so we had a few short years where we had a great relationship. That's how I found my love for Denver Broncos football, is because I was born in Denver. And so he was a fan ever since. And so he got me onto football, and we'd watch football every Sunday. And we really started to get along. And then he passed away. So it was especially traumatic for me. Sorry, I keep fixing my light here. It keeps moving. Anyways, yeah, it was very traumatic for me when he died, especially because it's like, all right, I didn't really get a chance to know you that well, and then you just suddenly died, and now I don't have you anymore. It's tough, and that would led to, even though I was always big, that's what led to me eating an abundantly more amount of food and just gaining so much weight. I went from that 300 mark to probably 600 pounds within a year or two. It was horrible.
I tried to move on with my life. In my 20s, I finally went to college. I went to fashion school, and I started selling clothes I designed, and it was a good time in my life. I loved fashion. I loved helping other women feel good about themselves. And I had cute clothes and I looked hot, and I knew it. But there was still this ache inside me. The eating made me forget about it. So I was still slowly gaining, but I didn't feel like my weight was holding me back at all. Until that changed one night when I fell and I hurt my knee really bad.
Mm.
So with that injury and my weight, I wasn't able to do my job anymore and had to quit.
Yeah, I talked about in yesterday's video how I've hurt my knee several times. I first hurt it when I was 13 playing football, tore ligaments in it, and I was told that I would need surgery by the time I was 19. But of course, it healed, and I didn't get surgery when I was 19. I tried playing football again after that, and I couldn't. I just didn't have the same strength, and I wasn't able to run as well as I did before. And so that did lead to a spiraling out of control and sort of being less active than I was before. I was a very athletic, big guy. Played football, enjoyed playing sports and stuff like that. But I've consistently re-hurt that knee many, many times throughout my life. Falling in the bathroom, falling on ice on my way walking to church, just falling, and it just constantly snapped something in my knee, and it hurt so bad. And so that just sort of contributes to your obesity, when not only do you have a food addiction, but you keep injuring yourself, hurting yourself, falling down, and the less mobile you become, the more susceptible you are to falling down. And it's not just painful, but it makes you want to give up, because it's like every single time I try to lose weight and I try to exercise and I go for a walk, I end up falling down at some point and injuring myself, and then you're bedridden again for a time. You're trying to recover, and it's just a continuous cycle that doesn't seem to end. It's sad.
But I still had to make a living. So I turned to plus size modeling. And at that point, my weight became something positive. And there was no need to diet or try to keep it under control. So over the next decade, I stopped even keeping track of my weight. But about the time I turned 40, my health started to get really bad. So I went to a doctor's appointment.
Yeah, we talked about this before, how at some point you just know you're going to be big, and it's much easier to join this fat acceptance movement that's going on, or try to make something positive of your weight. Like the lady who ended up finding feeders online who would pay her to eat, and squashing where she would sit on them. Like, she found a positive way to use her weight to make money, and so that just became her lifestyle, and it prevented her from having this need to want to lose weight. And so she's the same way here, where she is overweight. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't want to lose weight because food makes her feel happy. So she's going to find a way to make gaining weight a positive for her. And like she said, oh, I don't have to diet anymore. I figured it out. I'm making money. I'm a plus size model. That's who I am. And so you begin to identify as being a fat person. And when you do that, you just stop thinking that you need to lose weight. And that can be very dangerous as well, because as she's talking about now, and I talked about in other videos, once you hit that 40 mark, your body's going to start breaking down, and you're not going to be able to handle it as you did when you were in your 20s. So it's just, that's where the body positivity movement people are full of crap, is they don't know what happens to you once you hit your 30s and your 40s. It gets out of control, and your health does and will suffer.
And I weighed in at 444. I had never weighed so much before, and it just was like, oh my God, now what do we do? So at that point, I was resolved to get my weight under control and to do whatever I needed to lose it all. But I started working out and broke my foot. So at that point, I was worse than ever because I couldn't get around at all now.
Yeah, that's the thing. So many people think, oh, just get up and move, fat boy. Okay, well, I'm more susceptible to being injured at this weight. Your body's not meant to carry this weight. So if I go for a walk, you might be fine, but I risk breaking an ankle, falling down and hurting my knee, hurting my back. Like, all it takes is a little movement to throw your back out or to injure yourself in some way, and then you're back stuck in bed, unable to move. It's People don't understand what it's like when you get this big and then you try to reverse it. You try to lose weight, you try to diet, you try to exercise. It's not as easy as a lot of people make it out to be.
And because of that and how I was still gaining, I started to develop these large masses on my leg that turned out to be lymphedema. And it just made it more impossible to get around. So by the time I was 45, I was over 500 pounds. But when I was 50, my dad got cancer and passed away.
Mm. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, what I was saying before is the bigger you get, the more it spirals out of control, and the less likely you're able to handle it, and that leads to more weight gain. So how do people keep getting bigger? Well, that's how. It starts off small, it starts off slow, and then before you know it, a series of events lead you to having a food addiction that you can't get rid of. You start injuring yourself, you lose mobility, and then you're stuck in bed, and then you become really depressed, really upset, really hurt, and you just end up eating more food because that's the only thing in life that gives you comfort, and it's just a perpetuating cycle of self-abuse, really.
At that point, any desire I had to get my eating under control just went out the window. In that time, I was an emotional wreck, and I did the only thing I knew how to do, which was take food and stuff it down because I didn't want to deal with it. So all I did was eat for the next 5 years until I got up to the 600s. And now I live alone, and I spend just about every moment of every day either eating or getting food.
Yeah, that's how it was for me. There was a lot of time where I lived on my own and I was stuck in my apartment. I had nowhere to go. I didn't even have a vehicle. I had nobody living with me. And the only thing I could do was go to church. And even then, that became something I stopped doing because I just could not get up and go out. And just getting dressed became so difficult for me. And so, yeah, again, you just stuck in this perpetual cycle of self-abuse, and you just keep getting bigger and more depressed, and you're missing out on life, and that makes you even more depressed, and so you end up more to food. And you might even start finding other addictions because food just becomes sickening to you. You can only eat so much food and get so big before you start realizing that, okay, well, food's not doing it for me anymore. What other addictions can I run to? It's a horrible, horrible cycle that's very difficult to break out of.
I don't have anyone to help me, and people don't come to see me very much. So I have to fend for myself. But I can only go the distance my scooter can take me. So I don't go far. And it's embarrassing because I know everyone's looking at me and probably making comments. I just feel like I'm a freak show, basically, I guess.
Well, that scooter is a champ to be able to carry her through that place and take her where she needs to go. And if I remember correctly, I'm recognizing this clip now. I think she ends up going to a fast food place. And now I think before they didn't have DoorDash and stuff like that. So now she could probably very easily just stay at home and order her next fix, you know?
So I just try to get my food and get home as quickly as possible. Because once that food is in my mouth, the rest of the world just fades away. This is not how my life is supposed to be. I shouldn't be sitting on that scooter. I shouldn't be sitting in this bed. I am very tired of how my life is right now.
Yeah, that's horrible. The only time and the only reason why you get up is to go get your next fix, go to McDonald's, and then you're back in bed. I mean that's the only reason why a lot of these people live. It's for their next fix. Yeah, there was a time when I was gaining weight, and the only time I'd leave the house was to go to McDonald's, come home. Then for lunch, there was a Burger King right in front of the house, so like it's kind of across the street. But the next street over was a Burger King, and so yeah, it was very hard to live there, and they kept pumping out the smell, and so I became so acquainted with the people there at Burger King. They knew my name. They knew when I was coming in, and the lady would often give me discounts. She was really cool. But yeah, she knew when I was coming in, and she'd give me discounts and take a percentage off my meal because I was a frequent flyer, I guess. And if you have a big person come into your store, don't give them discounts. Don't give them a reason to keep coming back, even though she was probably doing her job and helping make the company money by, giving a frequent visitor discount so they keep coming back. But at the same time, it just sort of helped fuel my weight gain at the time. And let's continue.
Sweet pea. And I just can't live like this anymore. I just can't. I need things to change so much because I feel like I'm a ticking time bomb.
Those nuggets do look good. I haven't had McDonald's fries in quite a while.
And if I don't make a huge and drastic change to my life, I know I'm not going to be around much longer.
All right, that's the clip. Yeah, it's sad what she's dealing with right there. I mean, she was at the point that she finished her meal and she was still licking the ketchup or the sauce or whatever it was out of the container. Like, that's some next level hunger right there. But yeah, you just kind of get to a point where that's your whole life. Getting up out of bed, the only reason why you get up out of bed is to eat. And then you're just right back in bed because you just cannot handle life. You cannot handle walking, moving around. And it's really sad to see that people can get to a point where they associate themselves with their addiction, with their bad behavior. And it sort of justifies gaining weight, but then you just get to a point where your body just starts crashing and you can't handle it any longer. But anyways, that's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed this new setup that I got going on here. Please leave me some comments down below if you have any more advice for making my videos better. If you like this, if you didn't like it, if I'm trying to figure out where to move my screen to a better spot. So anyways, yeah, I really appreciate the support, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God bless you.